welcome to the Inspiration Incubator. Here we rejuvenate, reconnect, reteach, and redirect. I am your host, Leona Baker. It is our hope that you leave inspired with resources and information to help you achieve and dream. Our world needs you. Let's see who is next on the Inspiration Incubator. Beverly's Home Healthcare. Love is all that matters. Do you have a grandparent at home, a senior citizen, or perhaps just a loved one who needs additional assistance? Some may need non-medical services such as personal care attendants, certified nursing assistants, respite care, home health aides, homemakers, companions, or housekeeping. Others may need a long run of personal care services. Well, contact Beverly's Home Healthcare and get your loved one needs met today. You may contact them at 215-596-5200. That's 215-596-5200 today. Well, welcome, Sy. Welcome to the Inspiration Incubator, a podcast powered by Plans of Action Houston. How are you?
I'm doing well, Leona. Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
I'm just excited that you're here today. And what people may or may not know, you and I have known each other since elementary school. And when I think about that journey in terms of how I view you in the world then and how I view you in the world today, you were just always happy, smiling, a very kind child. And then as you evolved into a man, to see you with a family. I can just read through your story and pick up how dependable you are. You seem to be such a dependable spouse, a dependable father. It's a characteristic that we all need to have, but it's not necessarily consistent for everyone. I also think about a man who is compassionate. You're very compassionate as it relates to some of your experiences and just being raw, real, and uncut when it comes to sharing your journey on fatherlessness and helping to expose our youth, our adults, and even our parents, such as myself, to a new perspective of fatherlessness and how it impacts not just the child, but the parent, in addition to how the child seems to evolve into an adult and will consistently be impacted if they don't deal with certain aspects of that situation. I think of a man who is determined, as I see you working on your projects for Fatherless, and then I see you working on your project for Co-Survivor, which is another book that you wrote, which is, fictional based on real life situations. You're just constantly in the trenches, handling your business, loving your family. And it is such a joy to see your family evolve in spite of some of the trials and tribulations that you all have seemed to encounter as a result of unfortunately, your wife being diagnosed with cancer. And when I tell you the support that you bring to the table as a friend, the support that you bring to the table as a husband, a father, it is priceless. And it's a character in which it is entrenched with the love that God teaches us that we need to have one towards another, towards our fellow human beings, and to know that you are just determined to make sure that your work is not just out there to benefit yourself or, for you to gain any monetary value, but you are the kind of person who you're really moving in a way in which you want people to receive this information so they can get to the other side of pain that they have been carrying, so that you can help to educate them so they can have a better quality of life.
Thank you very much. And so, one of the things that hit me really deeply. I was actually talking to one of my fraternity brothers in Omega Psi Phi yesterday, and he was speaking about the golden rule and about doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. And a part of that really resonates with me more so that you have to be a giving spirit to the point that the real value of believing in God is people can see God in you. It's not
Mm,
always the Bible verses we can quote on the stories of the Bible that we can regurgitate because none of us were there. But when people see you, when they see your actions, does that resonate God with them? Not with you, with them. Like, will they? And literally, what you're saying, people do come up and ask me, even in corporate America, and they ask you, "Are you a religious person?" And I said, "Well, why do you
right.
say that?" He said, "Well, you say amen a lot in meetings." I said, "Because I agree with you, so I say amen." So I don't. To your point around who I am not a different person. Although I got older and I learned more from elementary school and my fraternity and the church at work, I am the same person. So if any of the people that are in different parts of my life talk, they're still talking about the same person. So I absolutely try my best to be authentic, and that's not always easy in our current social economic culture. It's not easy to always maintain who you are because everyone wants you to bend to their will. But I am an individual. I do love God. I do love my wife and love my children. And that's how I try to prioritize everything so that if it's a point that I can no longer, in my mind, represent God, that's when I need to change. And in writing these books, that's the point I was getting to because the reality is, Leona, the pain was getting too much for me to bear
Mm,
because I was holding it in, and my imagination is very vivid. So I get stuck in creating these thoughts that may not even be real, and I was in effect creating and sustaining my own pain about not having a father. And one counselor I spoke with about it put this very very direct to me and just said, "He did not choose you," and that hurt me to my core because
mm,
what I recognized in hearing that was I was the only one holding on to him. He wasn't holding on to me. So there was no point for him to reconcile because he let me go a long time ago. But I
wow.
was still holding on as if one day he would come back, and that wasn't going to happen. So I needed to learn about myself a little bit more in order to just start letting things go. That was one of the largest things that I did now, especially with COVID, is learning to let things go because if you hold on too tightly, it becomes an anchor for you.
Mm, wow. That was profound. And when you speak to rejection, it's something that we all have to experience in this lifetime, and it can consume us with fear. It can consume us with anger, and it can have us outside of ourselves, acting not as our best, but challenging us in ways where we don't understand how to get on the other side of pain. We don't understand what those steps are that we need to take. Essentially, if we're not working through it with a therapist or with a loved one, or if we haven't identified within ourselves that we are carrying the burden of rejection. We all
Yeah.
have to experience it. And there was a scripture that came to my mind when you said, "Are we doing what it is that we need to do in order to be at our best and in order for other people to be at their best? Are we really consistent with our character?" I've spoken before about how my grandfather was consistent with his character, his conduct, and conversation. The same person he was when he sat at the front of the church as a deacon, which I did not understand the different positions in the church, at the time as a child. All I knew is that was my grandfather, Poppy. He was just sitting where he sat, where he was supposed to sit with his friends. But his character and his conduct and his conversation was consistent no matter what. And I also want men to know, essentially men. My grandfather taught me something, which was great men don't arrive, they evolve. And no men are perfect.
Hmm.
So I want men who are listening to the podcast that it's not too late to become their best version of themselves, and that hopefully this information can help them in ways that they anticipate and in ways that they don't. But as it relates to the scripture that came to my mind is Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And so as you are evolving, you do exactly that. And at any time in your life, as you continue to evolve, I'm glad that you have the people around you that you need so that when you find yourself falling short or needing to make adjustments, that you have the tools and the resources around you to be able to do that. But moving forward, as it relates to Fatherless, the book, I want to read what you have on the back of the book. Fatherless is a reflection of a journey navigating life without a consistent male role model. Escaping the stereotypes still left unresolved scars, Fatherless is a commitment to reach beyond history, allowing future generations to exist without the psychological effects of constant abandonment. That is very powerful because it speaks to the rejection. It speaks to the power in someone's touch and someone being able to say, hey, man, let me come alongside you and help lift you up over this wall that I see you're facing that you need to climb, but you're stuck. You can't get over it by yourself. It speaks to humanity because there are a lot of statistics that are attached to fatherless children. It speaks to stereotypes, unresolved issues, so many things just right there in that one particular paragraph. So, can you tell us about Fatherless and speak to some of your journey? How did that begin with you saying, I'm going to go ahead and create a book that's going to address the needs of not just the child, but the adults, the parents, and all of mankind that needs to understand the impact of fatherless? Sy Bryant is a native Philadelphian, a product of Overbrook High School and Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. His educational roots in Philadelphia continued as he attended Temple University, graduating with a BA in computer science, and later attended Drexel University to acquire a Master's of Business Administration. With over 2 decades of experience, he has excelled in the pharmaceutical industry. Dedication and consistency have always been traits demonstrative of his character. As a result, his relentless pursuit to sustain and prioritize his family is admirable. Sy is a doting husband. Through his union with Tomika Bryant, together they have 2 teenagers, a lovely daughter and confident son. An African proverb has taught us it takes a village to raise a child. For his children, this expression of community has always been realized. However, for Sy, family existed in many forms. It was fashioned throughout his life due to the absence of his biological father. Daily, along his life's journey, he attempted to avoid pain and stereotypes which his mother and the fantasy of what he wanted his father to be in his mind assisted him through. However, not even in his imagination as a child could he continue warding off his unresolved scars. Until making a decision to change his attitude about being fatherless, emotions lingered at the surface of his longing and desire to be made whole. Church members, extended family, friends, and even his fraternity brothers have all played specific roles in Sy's development along his journey in life. However, there was always something missing. There was a tremendous void, like a thorn at the hem of hope. The weight of fatherlessness began to anchor Sy during his formative years as a teenager. As a result, writing poetry became a means to manage his life. Writing poetry was not a natural transition for an analytical and process-minded person, yet that different way of thinking was needed. A shift in his mindset to overcome the negative projections and forecasts of fatherlessness happened. Eventually making a decision to focus on his faith and choosing to change his mindset, Sy had a breakthrough. Poetry provided a solution to release every emotion and thought in the pursuit of peace. On Father's Day 2020, Sy released his first collection of poetry in the form of his book Fatherless. The compilation of poems exposed the pain, outcomes, and scars left throughout his journey of existing without a consistent male role model. Moreover, it was freeing. He experienced a release and understanding. Out of that experience, Fatherless, the book was conceived. It remains a commitment to reach beyond history, allowing future generations to exist without the psychological effects of constant abandonment. This segment of the Inspiration Incubator is presented to you by Dr. Tamara Beckford with You Are Caring Docs, a telemedicine urgent care provider. To receive remote services, to meet specific needs without going into an office, please log into her website at www.youarecaringdocs.com. Remember, when you need telemedicine urgent care, contact Dr. Tamara Beckford. This episode of the Inspiration Incubator has been presented by Gold Star Tax and Financial Solutions. IRS debt negotiation, income tax preparation, auto, life, home, health insurances. Just reach out to Yvette Allen at 832-593-4990. Again, Gold Star Tax and Financial Solutions.
So it did not start out that grandiose. It started out, and I don't know, we weren't in this class together. We started elementary school, but we also went to high school together as well.
Oh yes, absolutely. Overbrook Panthers.
Overbrook Panthers. So Overbrook, there was a creative writing class, and one of the teachers, I absolutely thought creative writing was just going to be a lot about make believe, writing some plays. She really challenged us to focus on things that mean something to you, because then your writing is different. It's more powerful. It's more palatable because it's real. And the key thing I just focused on initially was him not being there. So it did not hit me that my father wasn't there probably until I was in high school. Before then, my imagination was strong enough that I could claim I had a father, and I knew where he lived, although I really didn't, but it was a fake house on 63rd Street that I picked as his apartment. And that's that's where he lived. I knew he worked at the Spectrum, and that was enough for me. So, he was one of the guys that wrote on the it wasn't a plasma screen back then, 30 years ago, but on a scoreboard. And he used to write messages to me whenever we went there for the circus. Whenever we went there to watch games for schools, he always knew I was there, right? My mom would somehow let him know. But so not having him ever in my life, that was always enough. But as I got older, when I got in high school, is when I started really feeling the pain. That's when the pain really started. And although my mom helped me the best she could, and I had some aunts that helped me as well, it couldn't replace the pain that I was being rejected. So that's probably what anchored me back when I was putting the book together this year. Is I was just fortunate, Leona, because we went to school with a lot of people that fit that stereotype. And it's not just that your father left, it's people treat you that way. They treat you to say, if both parents didn't come up for parent night, oh, what's wrong with you? The teachers used to look down on us if they knew there was only one parent, or the parent never showed up at all because they were already working two jobs. So the teachers treated us differently based on our home environment. So when I started seeing the glimpses of that, I did better at school because I hated the fact that I forgot her name. It was my geometry teacher. She looked down on my mom after the first quarter. It could be. Was she a short black woman? No. She was a white lady with long black hair. I remember that. But I remember my mom came to school because that's when we had A, B, C, D, N, E, and F. So I was getting an E/F in her class. Mm-hmm. And the look that she gave my mom, this is the best you could do.
Yeah.
That changed me more than anything, because I hated that this woman felt like she was more powerful than my mother. Right. So
Wow.
that's what made me do well in school. And there was enough trouble around us, Leona. I didn't need to add to nobody's trouble. You know what I mean? So back then, people fought all the time. People got arrested all the time. Wasn't a big thing, all that kind of thing. But I didn't want to go that route to embarrass my mom. So
I know
that's
that's
one
right.
thing she made very clear on, and my grandmother as well. Do not embarrass me. That was the anchor. You can do a lot of things, but if you embarrass me, it's going to be different. And I was, from a child growing up, it's similar psychologically to, like, the elephant. They tie a chain around the elephant, so when it's a baby, they can't move, so they just believe they can no longer move. So
Right.
that is the psychological effect a parent can have on you, is that they can set direction for you. So where I thought I was missing was I only had one parent, therefore I only had half of my divine plan. That's how deeply it was embedded in me, that feeling that I was missing something. And so how it manifests itself now is, I had a stepfather, right? So although I maintained this pain, I got my second stepfather when I was like 19, and I treated him badly, Leona. I absolutely did. It wasn't until he started on his downward turn from prostate cancer that he and I could reconcile. And the real part that helped me was that so my kids only know him as their grandfather, right? And one time my son was young, and he told me to do something, and whenever he told me to do anything, I'm like, get out of here, dude. Like, you ain't my dad. I didn't say that, but that's the attitude I gave him. But then my son was coming of age where he understood conversation, and he said to me, well, Dad, you have to listen to your dad, right? And I was like, wow. Because if I don't listen to him, my son's not going to listen to me. And that is where that generational effects of that hierarchy establish itself, that the sense that we have now in our community is we have lost our structure. And it's not based on patriarch or matriarch or anything like that. It's the level of respect you should have for those that have come before you is not ingrained in our society anymore. Right? And so what I wanted to try to do with this book as well is lower those barriers, because a lot of the pushback we give people is self-generated from our own pain. There are tons of people, Leona, and I'm finding this out now a lot more, that can just give you some help and some guidance. You don't have to obey them, right? It's not like someone, like your dictator. But if you're so arrogant because of your own feelings and because of your own pain that you're worried about that pain coming back to you, you miss out on God's blessings. So what I am learning, and again, I haven't figured this out yet, Leona, what I'm still learning to do is allow myself a break from the past to experience the present. And so in order for me to break that cycle of pain, because just like my dad left me, his father left him, I did make a commitment. I committed to my wife and my son and my daughter, I'm not leaving. So whatever we got to work out, but I'm not going to leave you. Because when you know that going in, your entire atmosphere of your home is different, because divorce is not an option. Leaving is not an option. You have to work it out.
Right.
And if you know ahead of time you have to work it out, you can't get out of this. Your mindset is different because your mind is focused on resolving versus winning. And what I want from our young men is to win. But I also recognize a lot of us have that stigma, that anchor. So I'm hoping through poetry, one of those poems, and I think I can't remember the exact number, maybe 120, 200 poems in there. I'm just hoping one poem can reach one person where either it can make them cry and let the pain go, or allow them to talk to someone that can help them. And then after that, they can actually move on and become more productive again. But that anchor is real, especially if you held on to it for so long. But I do remember growing up, being in high school, a teacher probably should have got a counselor for me, because I remember writing about being depressed. And I know she graded everything, but she didn't. So I think, again, with the stigma, she expected me to be depressed because my dad wasn't there. She couldn't fathom I shouldn't be sad, whether he's there or not. Do you know what I mean? So it's a lot of things I'm learning, and This is one guy that my mom used to date years and years ago. He found me on Facebook as I was launching Fatherless. And he said something really interesting to me. He said, yeah, I knew back then you had a lot of problems. I was like, that's something, not that he was my father and, he was somebody my mom was dating, but I was just like, if he knew he was a stranger, who else knew? And who else,
Right.
didn't feel empowered to help me, to the point that at some point I had to help myself. But that's another good message for young men, and even men my age or older. It's okay to help yourself.
So, Sy, you were saying that your mother's boyfriend, he identified some issues you were having, but at the same time, he appeared to be powerless and not move forward to assisting you at the time when he possibly could have. So, can you continue and elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think it just helped me. It helped me realize that when you see children, not everyone thinks they can help them at all. But it also helped me to understand that as I was growing up, I did not necessarily need to wait on someone to help me. And I find that sometimes is like we get into this habitual way of thinking that for us to fix ourselves or change our direction, someone else has to intervene on our behalf. And this is the part that's really deep for me is it just needs to be you and God. Talk to God directly yourself and ask for that guidance, ask for that help. But then you have to stand up again, right? We all just have to, we will all face challenges because life is not easy, nor that God ever promised it would be easy, but he said, I'll be there for you if you just call my name. So we have to learn to call on God's name more in order to help us resurrect that inner spirit of God within ourselves, as well as to not waffle or just sit around waiting for life to get better for us. We have to create that betterness within ourselves and design a different plan for ourselves Whereas if there's something else we want to pursue, if there's something else we want to achieve, we can do that. We don't have to wait. So I think that's where the book ties in is taking you through a journey of immense pain. And I can absolutely say I was in immense pain, whereas, there were absolutely times I would definitely cry about it. I think the tears I have about it now are that the men that did love me, but I was too stubborn because I was waiting for a father to return that never was going to return. So I missed the love that could be provided to me, holding on to something that did not exist. And then it's about having hope. You must maintain your faith and hope to survive. Your mind controls your outcome. So if you lose that faith, lose that hope, whereas you're waiting for somebody else to save you, you cannot be successful.
Wow, these are definitely some jewels, Sy. There's a little book, and I love, love, love the ministry. It's called Hope for the Heart by June Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to read an excerpt from her book. It says, "Are you controlled by the fear of rejection? If your sense of self-worth is based on approval of others, you are on a runaway roller coaster with no ability to control when you are up or down. Your feeling of value is at the mercy of what others think about you. Your sense of identity is determined by how others respond to you. To get off this uncontrollable roller coaster and conquer your fear of rejection, allow the Lord to control your life. He created you and established your worth when he made you in his image. As you put your trust in him, he will turn your fear into faith." And then she goes on to share different scriptures. But I wanted to read that because of what you said was so powerful. You made the decision to move forward with healing. You made the decision to let your father here on earth go. You made the decision to work on yourself. And I think a lot of times what people don't understand about the pain that we encounter, we cannot control some of the circumstances that we encounter. Some of the circumstances that we encounter, we cannot control that. If we were born without all of our, limbs, we cannot control if we were born without a mother or born without a father, but we can control how we respond to it. And our life is a gift from God, and what we do with our life is our gift to him. It's our gift to the world. And so there's so much life to live in spite of the barriers, in spite of the devastations that will come along the way. But when we change our hearts, because you were holding on to your father because that was a desire, which was a true, real desire that most of us had. But somewhere along the way, you said, you know what? I'm going to let go of that. This is not serving me anymore. You were able to work through it because of your relationship with God. And that's just awesome that you can actually and honestly say that. Now, was there anything else about Fatherless that you wanted to review before we jump into Co-Survivor?
Yeah, I think the other key point that I've learned from this journey is the amount of pain that mothers of these sons and daughters have as a result of the child's father leaving. Because these mothers are raising their children the best they can, but there's a constant worry or concern to say, how will this impact their child? And so when I was writing this and putting this together, for launch on Father's Day this year, I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate the pain that mothers experience. And, my mom is my editor in chief. Yeah. So she reviews all my stuff ahead of time. And it was to that point that she also had her own self-reflections of, could I have done anything different for you? And, the answer is absolutely, no, because, she's the one that was actually there, but she was just talking about the pain itself, right? What could she have done to minimize the pain? Because as she's reading the pages, and I literally went back in the book on a couple of drafts, because when she responded back to say, her first message to me was, "I'm so sorry, baby." And I was just like, well, what's she talking about? Right.
Right.
And she said, "I didn't know you were in that much pain. I did not know." And this is all this year, Leona, right? So again, I'm in my 40s, but she didn't know I was in pain. We have a very good bond where she can think about me and I'll pick up the phone and call her, that kind of thing, right? So
right.
I just did a search on the word pain in the first set of poems. And out of, I think it's 120 poems, the word pain was mentioned 250 times. So that's the point that really hit me, how much pain I was in, that I was writing about it, without even realizing it. But I just kept referencing that word because that's the word that stuck with me. But then as a mother, one of the key things a mother always wants to do is, the word cure sticks in my mind. They want to cure their children from pain, right? They want to cure them. And she felt like she couldn't do that for me. And as other mothers were reaching out to me, they were feeling the same way, like to say, well, what should I tell my son? Or even the part I wasn't expecting was another element was, what should I tell my husband? Because I know he's in pain for the same reason. And it's a point that requires discussion, but it's also a point where the children, whether they're adults now or not, have to be able to have someone to speak with about it, just to let it go. And again, it doesn't impact everyone. Like, there's definitely other people we grew up with that didn't impact them at all, right? Whether they had a big family or a small family, it definitely stuck out to me because I was an only child. So it was just me and my mom. But there are other situations where maybe it did not impact them. So it doesn't mean go in your house and start causing trouble. It just means be mindful that someone may be going through something in your own home that you may not know about, but you should just ask the question just to make sure everyone's okay, right? So I think beyond the individual child, it's also thinking about the mother of that child or wife or sister or whoever, to just check on the people you love to make sure they're okay, so that it can hopefully give them a chance or empowerment to move on as well.
God will heal you, to anyone who is listening who needs to be healed, if you choose to let your desire go.
Correct.
I think the desire is what's going to hold you down. Yeah. Once you let go of that desire and you say, you know what, I no longer want to desire to be in this relationship. I no longer want to desire to be with this person. I'm going to move on with my life and focus on loving those who love me. And that's the same even for your child. Now, how that's going to impact my child later on down the line because she's been displaced from her family for whatever the reason is, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. Um, then I'll have to deal with that at the time.
Right.
But to anyone listening, you can heal if you choose to let go of your desire and focus on God. So I'm happy to have a happy, just fun-filled, free life. You're going to still have trials and tribulations in this life regardless, but I don't have any weights on me as it relates to relationships. I've only had 2 relationships my entire life, and I have children from those relationships. And, I don't have any negativity. When that comes to me, I give it back to God and I keep it moving. Because I want to be free. So I want to be able to
That's
live
the
my
key.
life, to be
Yeah.
happy. I don't want anything and anybody. Because I'm going to tell you, the lifestyle that I live, it has never been afforded to me through a man. Okay? The only men that have taken care of me is my grandfather, Johnny Baker Sr., and my daddy, Leon L. Baker. Other than that, I have never had a man take care of me. So it doesn't matter what anybody does or doesn't do or have and have not done for me and my children. The checks that I get, the investments that I have, the home that I live in, that's all me. So to the mothers out there that are struggling, that are dependent on those child support checks, you have to make your own way in this world. You can't depend on that. And you can't allow yourself to become angry or frustrated because they don't send it. Your life is your own. What you choose to make out of your life, it is what it is, and God will take care of the rest. So I'm so grateful that you are opening up this conversation, and I'm looking forward to being there with you at some point, just helping some of these young ladies and you helping the young men with these feelings and these emotions of being fatherless. It's going to be a great time.
Absolutely.
Great time. And I want to just close out reading um, as it relates to fatherless. I want to read one of the poems that you wrote in the book. It's called Rejected Being. Woke up crying. Mom asked why. I cannot remember the dream. I remember not wanting to be alive. Why did he leave? I just never knew, Mom said. This is what I will do for you. I will reach out to him. Because he owes you this, she ended with a kiss. The time was arranged. The phone did ring. Hello. Tears was all I could bear. He waited for a while. With a lisp, he asked, Are you there? From his point of view, I didn't need anything. My mom would provide it all. Thus the burden was passed to me. Would I leave my children like he left me? Children arrived one at a time. After a while, I started to understand it isn't easy to be a father, to be a man. I reached out again, just one more time. Arranged a visit sporadically, ended up in his home for the night, not necessarily comfortable, but just something I needed to do. Even saw pictures of my nephews with the same dimples that my 2 have, regardless of individual feelings. Genetics are still passed. That was the end of that chapter. We connected a few more times, nothing significant, just no longer had an interest, but somehow that one scene on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it still gets to me. We'll ask Uncle Phil, why doesn't he want me?
As it goes back to what you're saying, that desire. And even though now my confidence is at a different level where, I don't necessarily need to be so concerned about other people, is something anchored in the person that made me, is what I kept holding on to. But even like I remember that scene when I was literally waking up. And so that scene happened in high school. And I remember it so vividly because I think it was when Jesse Jackson came to our school to talk one time. And I wasn't there because my mom let me stay at home because I was home crying. Because I just woke up and it hit me that he didn't want me. And so that scenario where, it's a very painful experience. I think Tupac said it as well one time in one of his lyrics. He said, nothing hurts as bad as when your son wants to know why his dad doesn't love him anymore.
Wow.
That's a painful thing for a mother to experience. And the reality is mom should not have to endure that. To your point about being responsible, men should do that. If you need to be out, at some point the child is going to look for you. And,
Yeah.
be ready for the discussion. At least the benefit you have is as an adult, you have a lot more time to prepare, but it's coming.
Hmm.
And I think where my biological father and I had conflict is he wanted me to address him with respect. And I didn't want to. I was absolutely taught to say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir to everybody, but not him. I don't.
Hmm.
Because and that's what let me know I was still holding on too tight. Because
Right.
I did not forgive him if I couldn't treat him like I treated everyone else.
Wow.
Right.
Hmm.
So it definitely still, I could probably do it more so now, but even high school, college, after college, probably up until this year, I would never speak to him with any a bitter tone of respect. So when I did go visit him, it was really just to understand, because at that point I had my two kids, and again, life isn't always good. I understood the frustration of being married. I understood the frustration of having kids and you and your wife not agreeing on everything. And it is a lot easier just to go away. That is
I know
absolutely
that's
like,
right.
we don't agree. Okay, bye. That is easy, but that's not the right thing to do.
And to your point, that is so true because what some people may not know, Calvin did ask me to marry him. He did
Mm,
ask me. And I was wise enough to say, you are not ready. And I knew he was going to resent me had I said yes, because it was right around the time when he was going to go into the military. I come from a military family, and you know there was so much going on with our situation. I was like, look, you got to move on and get your life in order because we have two sons. And what I meant by move on, I mean just get yourself together.
right.
Um, but I pretty much knew that we weren't going to get married. Like a woman knows,
Mm,
the man is his responsibility to find the woman. The woman is her responsibility to accept or reject that man. And so, yes, but once I started understanding that the relationship was not going to work because of things that he was consistently doing and the patterns, and I just know what kind of woman I am. I'm not going to share a man, and I am going to be in a monogamous relationship, period. And I'm going to be with someone who's going to build with me, period. End of story. I don't want all the extra that comes along with, bringing people inside of a relationship that should not be a part of it. And so that wasn't for me. And I knew that. And I knew what I deserved. I knew what I grew up seeing and how my grandfather loved my grandmother. That was the love of his life. And seeing how he poured himself into his children. So I wasn't that one. So nonetheless, you know, he went into the military, and as I continued to raise my sons, I was okay, but
mm,
not understanding how that impacted my children in ways that I just couldn't understand. Even when my son started acting out, I did, I believe in therapy, so both of my sons at one point in time have had it.
right.
And then I believe in God, so the church was consistently in our lives, and we've gone to family counseling at our church. So you try to work through these things in life. You can't hold yourself down, blaming yourself for not seeing every impact that negativity is making on yourself or even your children, because we do have blind spots. And so I recognize that when you have children with someone, what people don't understand is there's going to always be or should be some kind of communication, some kind of effort to be there for the child and to ensure whether it's an adult child. And I say that because, when you have a child with someone, they're your child. But sooner or later, that child is going to grow up into an adult. And both parents are still accountable and responsible emotionally, financially, and every which way around.
Correct.
So, if a parent chooses not to be there, you can't force them at all. But just try and work through it with the child so that the impact of that parent not being there doesn't weigh that child down, and then they're walking around an adult not feeling whole, feeling incomplete, having fears. There's a lot of negative aspects that come along with being fatherless if you allow yourself to be attached to them. It was a blessing for me to have peace in my life and, not to have to deal with certain things that women have to deal with ongoing, that I've had to deal with at some point in time between those two relationships. But, to have peace is just a blessing. So you have to count your blessings and know that you're worthy of peace, joy, and think about it for the mothers that were, because like for me, I didn't date a lot at all with my sons, and I think about how young and how beautiful I was, and I only know that because the men were constantly telling me. I was just I was just focused on being a mom, and I just really just enjoyed being a mother, and I would see how men would have the desire for me to be in their life, but too many of them were inconsistent with wanting to do it the right way. So I was just like, I'll just raise my sons and keep it moving. But anyway, Sy, so just in us transitioning, now it's time for us to focus on Co-Survivor. And when I tell you I'm excited about this book, once again, you are writing my life story into your book. So tell us about how you and your wife met, and just share a beautiful memory, and then walk us through some of the unfortunate battles that she's had to face being diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, so I met Tomika Bryant in college. She actually went to Brook with us. So she's older than we are, so we would never have interacted with her. So I was trying to think if she knows your sister or not. I can't remember.
Okay.
But so we didn't know she was even there, and she didn't know I was there in high school. We ended up transferring from our first schools to Temple University. Just casually interacted, just because she's in a sorority, I'm in a fraternity. And then we ended up working at the same corporation. So that's where I really probably met her and started actually interacting with her, just on the flirtatious thing. But, I was already dating someone at the time, so it wasn't anything serious. And so, it was really good, like you were explaining with Calvin, is like, her and I were just friends. We could just talk trash. I could get advice from her, you know what I mean? It was more along those lines. So it wasn't, because men and women, it's really interesting, have a much different relationship when it's not about sex or, dating and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It is something really pure about it. When both parties come in not wanting anything from the other person. You know what I mean? So you get an honest interpretation of that person, and they just tell you like it is. There's no, crazy interpretations or misbeliefs. It's almost like that purity of love, right? So when I eventually, got out of my last relationship, and, because we were together, every day at work or whatever, it didn't start out with the intent of us being together. It was just more time to talk about other people. You know what I mean? It was like, that was the person I hung out with at work. And so eventually we started dating, and I think the part that it filled me the most, and this does touch on the fatherless thing, is her family was really strong. Yeah. So it felt like even as we were dating, I felt at home with her family. And the most touching bit I had was not her directly. It was actually her grandmother. So her grandmother had, 10 children. The 10 children all had grandchildren. Some of them had great-grandchildren. And when I first met her, and she's one of these, she was a very elderly matriarch from a, southern black kind of woman. But she did not hold her tongue, Leona, right? So if she did not like you, she told you to you didn't have to guess. You knew who was welcome in her house and who wasn't. And before I left, when I first met her, she told me, said, "You are welcome here anytime you want, with or without Tomika." I was like, wow. Right? So it's like, I was just like, I just met this woman, and, and most people can't say my name properly, and she knew it from the first bit. And even while she was still alive, she would ask my mother-in-law, her daughter, about me and really have interest, and she would actually check on me. And again, this woman has 10 kids and, 30 grandkids, and maybe at that time 10, 15 great-grands, and she was asking about me. That was really humbling for me. it was really, so it was almost like, I got to be in this family. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, this is the love I want to raise my family in.
All right.
So from that perspective, again, and Tomika and I already were friends anyway. So it wasn't like we had any secrets. Because again, it's like, I wasn't planning to date her, Leona. So I told her everything. I didn't hold my tongue on anything. I told her how I treated women, good, bad, and indifferent. I told her, because she was just another girl to me. She wasn't somebody I was pursuing that I had to lie to, right? And I didn't have to exaggerate who I was, because it didn't matter. I wasn't interested. But so at the point that we started just hanging out more and more and more, and we started having feelings to each other, it was pure in the sense that she already knew who I was and I knew who she was. It wasn't like you start dating someone, you start a relationship, then you start learning who they are, right? So she knew my weaknesses, she knew my strengths, and that's what felt comforting to some degree, because I didn't have to pretend with her. And so, eventually got married, started having kids, and then 7 years ago was like when our life changed. So one of the things my company used to do was to have a mammogram truck at all of our sites at least twice a year. And it was to support breast cancer awareness. And every year I would forward the email to my wife, the truck will be here, you gotta wait in line, make an appointment, you show up, blah, blah. And this one year, in 2013 is when she actually went. And, that in itself was odd and weird, because it's one of those things, Leona, where you just know something's not right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I know something's not right. Let me just go check. And so it turned from that, where I remember the day vividly, like we're all four of us were just sitting in the living room watching TV, and she picked up the phone, and I saw her face become numb. And so I got the kids, took them outside, so she got, I realized who she was speaking with. I just let her have her moment with the doctor, because it's not like she would have had a real conversation in front of me or the kids at the time. And so it was really odd, because nothing physically changed with her, but our entire world changed at that day. Because everything became surreal. Crazy things we used to argue about weren't important anymore. Money wasn't important anymore. Travel wasn't important. Nothing mattered but her in that moment. But none of us knew what to do to save her. And so my wife and I, where we differ by a lot, is she accepts and digests and gets to that cycle of, acceptance a lot faster than I do.
Right. So
she digested it really quickly, and she was already scheduling appointments, and all I could muster was, they said what? So I couldn't get past even the words that she had cancer. And at that point, she moved on. She moved, and I was stuck for weeks on, are you sure? And this is already by the second and third, appointment and blah, blah, blah. And she's already planning for surgery. And I'm like, what do you mean you have cancer? And so that's where I realized, and this is probably the negative side, I had to stop talking to her because I was making it worse for her. Because because of my unwillingness to accept, I wanted to talk about step 1, and she was already on step 5.
Wow.
Right? And because there was no value in her coming back to get me, Leona, right? So I stayed there, and I felt by myself. And, one of the scenes in the book, and I got to share this with you. I'm not going to tell you the scene because I want people to actually read the book. But when she read the first scene in the book, she was angry with me. And when I say angry, I mean today. I mean, when she read the first copy a couple months ago, she was angry with me and literally stopped talking to me. She was so angry with me. And, I try to encourage her to keep reading, like don't just stop there. But just the first scene alone, because in reality, she just did not know how it affected me. And she didn't digest I was having an impact on my life watching her and waiting for her while she was getting like a double mastectomy and reconstruction. And she couldn't fathom that every time she got chemotherapy, me watching her lifeless body, that impacted me.
My Lord.
Right? And so I just held it all in. And, it was the most challenging part was being still working, and you had to perform. And this was like we're being black in corporate America. is detrimental to some degree because you can't show emotion because no one wants to see it. You get a stereotype associated with you. So I could not show any emotion related to it. And I told very few people. I think I told just my manager and maybe one coworker. And with my manager, it was just FYI in case I'm not there. The coworker, I told him, if I ever get out of pocket, I need you to pull me aside. I said, because I don't know how I'm going to manage this. Because she was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, which is one of the most aggressive forms of it. And, the mortality rate is very high the first 5 years. It's maybe like 75%. But if you make it to that 5 year, the mortality drops to like only 10%, right? So in my mind, I needed these 5 years. And I could not make the world go around the sun any faster because I would try, right? But I just kept focused on these 5 years. And that's probably the third or fourth year, I could definitely say I was probably depressed because I couldn't stop thinking about her not being here. And that's not the right attitude to have. So again, it's not something I could have spoken to her about because it's negative, right? So you don't want to invoke any negative in someone that's going through chemotherapy when it's like they're killing her body every 2 weeks. And, it's like, how dare you say how you're feeling, right? It's like, are you serious, right? So I just held it all in. And I literally probably, until this year, and it was just for me writing, I just decided this October 1st, I wasn't going to be in pain. Because Breast Cancer Awareness Month for me every year has been torturous. I hate it. And it's because it kind of brings it up every time that once you're diagnosed with cancer, it stays with you because there's no cure for it. You can get it to remission and, you can get to a better place, a comfortable place, but it doesn't necessarily go away because your body can still make it. It's just not making it. We're blessed at this point, right? But one of the key things the doctor said from the beginning was your mind determines your outcome. And if you think you're dying, your body will start to die. And although she digested that very quickly, I couldn't because all I heard in his words was die. And I was like, what do you mean she can die? And that wasn't his intent, right? His intent was keep you at uplift. You got to be positive, but your mind can kill you. What do you mean? So again, it's like I was stuck literally from the chain cycle. I was stuck at just accepting she had it. And, it was the most challenging part as well was I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't stop thinking about it because everyone, my family and friends that knew about it would always ask me, well, how's she doing? Is she in remission? So there was nowhere where I could go just for peace. Because in a way, you kind of need time to not think about it. So work was that for me. So I became a workaholic because people at work didn't know. So I could always hide in my work. There was absolutely times where I would leave work and literally have to go outside to cry. Because it was just too much for me sometimes because she would have good days and bad days, but I still had to go to work. And so a bad day for her could be, she's literally sleeping for damn near 24 hours. And as a husband, you become concerned. But there was nothing I could do. That was just side effects of chemotherapy, side effects of the medicine she was taking to, boost her immune system. It's just a side effect. Yeah. But to see someone in that state where, they're lively, they are a social butterfly, they're extroverted, to be reduced to lying still for like 10 and 12 hours at a time is hard.
Yeah. One of the things that I can say is that I can relate to you to a degree. I don't know what it's like to have a spouse in that situation, but I do know what it's like to have a sister in that situation. And unfortunately, my sister, years ago, her fiance passed away in a motorcycle accident. And so she raised her daughter by herself. And, her being diagnosed with breast cancer, it was overwhelming. And the first time was about maybe 2 years ago. But then unfortunately, she was diagnosed with it again. And the photos that I've seen, the videos that she showed me, it's like my sister is everything to myself and my siblings. She's not just a big sister, she's a big sister that plays her part. Now, for years, I was kind of like the big sister when we were younger because my personality was just a little more aggressive, and my mother knew that if she asked me something, I was going to tell her the truth no matter what, even if it cost me to get in trouble. She knew that I would tell her the truth. And so my older sister, when we were younger, she was very quiet and to herself, and she just didn't have an aggressive bone in her body. Just she wasn't going to tell somebody, you need to do this, you need to do that. I had those leadership skills early on.
Right.
So, but as we evolved and we're all over, the world in different places, her role is what it is. She is our big sister. We can talk to her about anything. She keeps it to herself. And to think about life without her is just, I can't even imagine. She was my first friend, my best friend in this world consistently. We all have best friends, but when you have that one best friend that has never let you down, that you can call no matter what, she has consistently been that for me. I'm so happy that your wife had you, someone that was reliable and dependable, consistent, during that time, because it's hard. It's very difficult. The changes that someone's body goes through when they have cancer, the emotional state that they're in. I consider myself, I know I'm a workaholic, and it's gotten me through in life, whether I was happy or not. I just knew I had things to do. I had to take care of my household. I had to work. So I was able to manage a lot of things in my life because of that. But for my sister, I made sure at any time, if I needed to reschedule something, if I needed to just talk to her, whatever it was, whatever I had going on, I just had to take a back seat because I needed to be there for her. And one of the things that you helped me to see, you helped me to understand that I was a co-survivor. And I can say this last bout that she's had with cancer, I will never forget. I was at the supermarket and I got in my car and somebody on social media had said something. And I don't know what it was about what this person said specifically, but it was like I just had a full blown moment where I was just in my car crying, praising God, just giving him all the glory that she made it through her second, last, and hopefully final treatment. Because my mother, unfortunately, she died from lung cancer.
Okay.
And, and that was as a result of her smoking cigarettes, unfortunately. But nonetheless, the point is, you help to educate us, the community, and ultimately the world, that we are co-survivors, and these emotions that we're having and us having to work through our own mindset to make sure that we are being a help and not a hinderer is something that we need to know. We need to understand who we are in the life of an individual who has cancer and how we can move forward. And yes, there are therapists out here. They can help us and they can guide us. But there are also people who are considered experts, such as yourself. This is your area of expertise because you lived through it. You experienced it. So thank you for your gift of co-survivor.
Yeah, thank you. And it's, what I did realize as I was trying to even think of like a title for this book, there aren't a lot of resources out there, right? You can go to general therapy, and I did try it, right? And the therapy didn't work for me, you know what I mean? But I'm sure it could absolutely be helpful depending on where you are in the cycle of acceptance.
Right.
But there aren't a lot of resources just in general for those people that are going through it. For the patient itself, there's tons of available. There's organizations focused on the breast cancer patient, support groups, people that will call and check on you, people that even visit you that don't even know you, right? So, but it's almost like we're hidden with managing the pain on our own, seeing our loved one endure pain.
Yeah, it's something that only people who go through it will ever understand. Because if you want to hurt someone, and we see this in the movie all the time, You don't hurt the person, you hurt the person that they love.
There you
And
go.
I love my sister, with everything in me, so to have her not here, it just wouldn't be, it's just not a normal situation. But I know for me, so where can you tell us, as we're, ending our time, can you tell us where we can purchase Fatherless and where we can purchase Co-Survivor, and what should people keep an eye out for next?
And so Fatherless and Co-Survivor are currently available on Amazon for Kindle as well as paperback. So again, you can look on Amazon and search for Co-Survivor or Fatherless, or you can just search for Sy Bryant, Sybryant, and you'll be able to have direct access to the books. So that's where we are now. I think going into next year, I'll be spending some time just talking about relationships, because one thing, I can't say I'm an expert at marriage, but I have been married for 18 years now, and just what I recognize is we do not have realistic discussions about relationships and love. What we talk about and all the poems we need, all these lovey-dovey kind of things, that's not how marriage or love is in reality, right? There are ebb and flows,
I know that's it.
right. There are absolute ebb and flows, and so the next set of poetry will be talking about those ebb and flows. They'll be talking about the downside, the upside, the in between side. The doubt side. That change from when you get that first feeling of love to that feeling of, well, who are you? Or get out. So we have to really start having real conversations. And this part hit me as my kids are teenagers now, and they haven't had that first love hit them, but I know I'm gonna see it where they get all infatuated and all this kind of stuff. I just want them to know there's more than one side, and love comes in all different ways. And just because you love someone today does not mean you'll feel that love in that same way tomorrow. And that marriage part, that relationship part, is about that commitment to stay no matter what, to be willing. The marriage part is about that willingness to work on the relationship as these two people evolve over time. And that's the biggest challenge that we just don't talk about. And while I think a lot of our friends, have separated or got divorced because they can't manage to change, or they never knew the person to begin with. So I'm looking forward to talking about that, coming back, hopefully to talk to you again, Leona, early next year, so we can talk about that.
Yes, that sounds very exciting. And I just have to chime into your point. It kind of puts me into understanding the child relationship with the parent as the child is young and they're a baby and they're so cute and adorable, and you just loving on them and getting all those kisses and all that sugar, their little sugar lumps,
Right. Yep.
And then you dressing them up and they're all cute, and then as they morph into teenagers, it's like, okay, excuse me, come again. Okay. All right, come on now.
Right, it's no more hello, how you doing? It's hey, what's up, Dad?
Okay,
who you talking to?
What? You better watch that. It's yes,
right.
ma'am. Okay.
Right.
So in relationships, people have to understand. Number one, you have to choose to stay committed, because I didn't have to raise my children either. I could have dropped them off. I could have said, look, I don't want to be a mom. I could have done all of those things. But see, when somebody or something belongs to me, it belongs to me. So I knew how to jump in and handle it because I was raised by men. So I knew how to manage my household despite me being the only one. It would have been nice. It would have been lovely to have that extra set of hands, but I couldn't allow myself to stand in rep for not having it. But nonetheless, commitment. Are we committed to one another?
Correct.
And I am looking forward to having that conversation. And I think that the way some of us can be supportive of that, when you see husband and wives going through those things, don't overstep your boundaries and allow them to work it out.
Amen. Mind your business.
Yeah. Here we go. Hey, I'm minding my business.
There you go.
I'll try to tell you, just let them work it out. Well, Sy, this has been amazing. I'm just so glad that we had a chance to, talk, and all the way from Cassidy Elementary to Overbrook High School, and now we're just supporting one another in our business endeavors. And your work is truly from the heart, and I hope people can openly receive it with all the joy and patience, and understanding in the world, because you have a lot to say. If they're listening, they will be able to hear you. So thank you so much.
Thank you as well for having me, Leona.
You're very welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.